On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day. A lot is going on just constantly. I think every day that's what we're going to be talking about here. If you miss 24 hours, you're practically missing the world. Got stories about Pelosi, her continuity plan, and how that's just not playing out quite like she originally imagined. Also, issues with taxes. And funny, they are attacking Trump, but we've got some information from both sides. Also, foreign interference and voter fraud is going to be coming into play. Got some very interesting information around there. I don't know why I'm pointing at her. And Durham, obviously, is going to be coming into play. We've got a lot going on. Let's get in and start checking it out. On Zero Hedge, we have Pelosi primes Democrats on the chance that the House decides the presidency, but that's not quite how it plays out. Who receives the vote is determined by an internal tally of each lawmaker in the delegation. This means that the presidency may not be decided by the party that controls the House itself, but by the one that controls more state delegations in the chamber. That is how it's done, as state by state. So whoever controls more state delegations will basically have the majority. And right now, Republicans control 26 delegations to the Democrats' 22. This is one more example where if by chance we don't have the vote figured out by the time that everything's said and done, and if the Congress has to help us decide who wins, one, we're going to probably have the Supreme Court filled, which is going to help make sure we follow the laws. And two, we've actually got some precedents in place that's going to keep her from becoming president. The only way she becomes president is if something happens to the president and the vice president, like they die. Then she would continue on in the succession. When you have an issue over who won the election, it doesn't just go to the leader of the House. That's not how it goes. You figure out who should be the president and who should be the vice president. My understanding, the House, based off the delegates, decides who the president will be, and the Senate, based off the delegates, decides who the vice president will be. And so this is how it could potentially play out. That might benefit the right quite a lot. Now, something that's a big yahoo that happened recently, we had a BLM supporter who was actually charged with attempted murder after driving into a crowd of Trump protesters in a parking lot. This white car here, you've probably seen some of the videos. I'm not going to play them just because you tend to get in trouble with these things. It's just the way things are nowadays. But imagine a car kind of running and people didn't look like they were doing anything. Someone was taking pictures of the license plate, but I didn't see anyone brandishing weapons or anything crazy like that. It was here in California where it's pretty illegal to even practically own a firearm, let alone have one out in public. That's a no-no for sure. And it was in Long Beach too, which is kind of strange. But anywho, after everything was said and done, this gentleman got hurt pretty bad. You can see his ankle's pretty jacked, supposedly got a broken ankle. And right here's the lady that was driving the white car. And wow, she has goggles and all this Antifa type gear. It's almost like she was there to cause problems, yet somehow met with some problems all on her own, and then trying to kill people in the process is now being arrested. Now we'll see if she stays in jail. We'll see if the California DAs have any heart, but whatever. We'll see how that plays out. Now the whole thing's with taxes. This is kind of interesting. So everyone's really peeved right now that Trump didn't have to pay taxes, he paid $750 each year in federal income taxes. So in the first year, he paid what was it, 2016, I think he paid $750, and then 2017 as well. Now, 2017, he was the president, and theoretically, he was donating his entire $450,000 paycheck to some charity. So I would assume he probably gets to write all that off, frankly. So the fact that he even paid anything is surprising, but obviously he's got some other income coming in from other places. So people are upset about that, but he's doing legal using tax laws. Again, they can get mad all they want. They're making buttons already. I mean, that was one of the things that's kind of funny is immediately Joe Biden was able to exploit this. And they've got buttons out there that, hey, I'm a teacher and I paid more in taxes than Trump and all this stuff. Well, hey, good on you. But I think anybody that understands how business works, one, business people get to write off losses. Two, business people are who actually pay to have people work for you, not Antifa thugs burning down cities. You guys don't generate jobs other than maybe picking up after you, which is still paid by taxpayers. You've got people that are wealthy that tend to get away with a lot, sure, but they also, they use the tax laws to help try to create jobs and basically help try to create more wealth. Do I think there's some issues there? Yeah, but for the most part, that's how the tax laws are set up. Most of the Democrats are very, very wealthy, and they take advantage of these same tax laws. like Joe Biden. So out of Breitbart, Joe Biden exploited his S corporation loophole to avoid payroll tax. So that's how he's gotten around some taxes that he should have had to pay as well, payroll taxes. So instead of, I guess, paying someone an actual salary, he probably did it like he's the CFO. I don't know how you get around that. I'm not a tax guy. Whatever the case is, people take advantage of tax laws. I get to write stuff off my condo. Things happen, man. We get to take advantage of stuff. And I'll tell you what, it's awesome when you get to. It's fantastic. But for the most part, yeah, the more money you have, the more you can write off. But then again, the more money you make, the more they try to take, right? So it's kind of how it plays out. So what's interesting is Trump's like, all right, I knew this was going to happen. And you know this is how Trump was. Everyone's been saying this for a while. They've been trying to get Trump's taxes for almost 4 years now. So here they are. They finally got some somehow. And Trump says he paid many millions in taxes and teases possible release of very impressive financial statements. First off, very impressive. Is that not a Trumpism? Everything's very impressive. It was a perfect phone call, all these things. It's just the way he talks. I love it. President Donald Trump said on Monday that he paid millions of dollars in taxes, but was entitled to depreciation and tax credits, adding that he is extremely underleveraged and suggesting that he may release financial statements that would show all his assets and debits. Or debts, I guess, which is, whatever. Assets and credits. Let's debits and credits. Let's talk accounting. That's so boring. But Trump was responding to the New York Times report, obviously. So this is something that's been waiting. Trump's ready for this. He's got a clean record. Everyone knew that going into this because they would have dug something up by now if he had any dirt in his past. And he apparently doesn't. So we'll see how this plays out. Now, when we talk about foreign interference, this is just one more example. Again, everyone's worried about Russia, and I've got a really cool story that I think is, maybe conspiratorial, maybe, but it's a good thing to kind of keep in mind, and I think part of the problem. But that being said, China also being a huge problem when it comes to messing with our elections and being a foreign asset, as well as Soros and probably some other countries as well. But the Chinese state media outlet has thrown support behind the Black Lives Matter. How? Because they created this. They created this cartoon of, hunt that person and the guy's running and he's obviously got color and there's a dog and they're cops. China's trying to inflame things, don't you think? Now, we've already got plenty of people out in the streets that seem to be making a big deal about things. But one thing that we feel that we should point out, just to be fair on both sides of the equation, because, China is really an up and coming, just excellent example of humanity, right? I mean, the way the way they care about their fellow humans and whatnot, and the fact that they are so very pro-Black. I mean, as you can see on these two Star Wars posters, the one on the right is the one that was released in China, and you'll notice Black individual. Oh, wait, where'd he go? Wait, where? He's down here. He's really small. All right, he's really small. Okay, no, he's still there. He's just hard to see. Anywho, speaking of foreign as well, this is kind of interesting. Cash for votes. Ilhan Omar is accused of leading an illicit ballot harvesting scheme in Minneapolis. Now, I will say the way this plays out, sounds like people are kind of saying people like Ilhan Omar. Maybe it's her, maybe it's not. I mean, the way this is playing out, they're blaming it on her right now. But whatever the case is, it's happening in her district. It's her people. And we had James O'Keefe that decided he was going to do a little undercover action and get to the bottom of this for us. So when it talks about voter harvesting and or possibly any sort of voter fraud, here's an example. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but here's an example. And oddly, right after this, I also have a webpage that shows all the different people that were actually accused of voter problems. And it's over the past number of years. And we can just scroll through that real quick, because when they say there's no actual cases of voter fraud, that this is all completely made up, well, I contend that maybe that's not totally true. And so I'll share some information that might suggest otherwise. Let's check this out.
James O'Keefe here in downtown Minneapolis at the scene of the crime. The person you're about to meet, Liban Mohammed, aka King Liban 1, boasts about the hundreds of absentee ballots in his car.
Numbers don't lie. Wawjeedan gaarigaygu waa buuxaa. Waxaas waa absent ballot salka yaala. Soo ma jeedin. Fiiri, waxaas oo dhan soo ma jeedin. Waa buuxaa gaarigayga. Waa buuxa yaala. Waxaas kullu waa Jamaal Cusmaan way. Fiiri. 300 clear maanta soo dhacday oo Jamaal Cusmaan. Yeah.
There was video. You can see the video. There was a video out and about that he has the ballots in his car.
Right.
And talking about the only way you can win is with money. I was looking at them and they were not filled. They were blank.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots? People who work with like Ilhan Omar. Where do they pay the money? The minute we sign the thing, the election, that's what you get paid.
Money is everything. Money is the key in this world. If you ain't got money, you should not be here, period.
Marka odayaasha waa loo codsadaa.
Waa loo codsadaa, ha.
Waana laga qaadaa.
Waa laga qaadaa, ha.
At the end of this street,
Yes.
there's 3 towers called Phone Towers.
Okay.
And it's all seniors, and they took every ballot.
Every ballot. They just take
Every
them from
single
them.
ballot. They knock on the door and say, your ballots, come give it to me, give it to me.
They don't even pay them for it. They just take it.
No. And the ones that didn't vote on ballots, the young people and the women and stuff, they were paying cash. They were getting bags of money the last 1 week here to drive people. So there's a vested interest, but we are victims of the system. They don't give a shit about any Somali.
2 in the morning, still hustling.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots? People who work with like Ilhan Omar and other candidates who work for them. They came to us to our apartments. They tell us that this year you're going to go for it. You don't go nowhere, you stay home, we will tell you fill up so your absentee ballot. When it comes, we'll come and get it. You just don't go nowhere, you stay here. So they fill up for us.
No, they say people like Ilhan Omar. People like. So again, I think I just want to call it out and say that I don't think they have any factual evidence yet, anyways, and whether that comes or not, I don't know. So it's just people that are saying people like Ilhan Omar. But whatever the case is, however this is getting paid for, they're being offered money to take ballots and to turn them in with their own signatures, with their own votes. Now, whatever side they're helping, I don't want to just assume. But probably not trying to help the Republicans or certainly anyone that's about freedom, I'm pretty sure. So out of the heritage.org, we've got the Heritage Foundation showing election fraud cases. Now, there's a couple filters on here. I refined by the type of case being a criminal conviction. There are all sorts of them, but I wanted an actual criminal, and then kind of opened it up to anything that showed up, but that was actually a criminal conviction, meaning somebody found them guilty. So, fraudulent use of absentee ballots, ballot petition fraud, buying votes, ballot petition fraud, blah, blah, blah. You'll see these are all 2020. Yep. We'll go ahead. First one down here for 2019. So, okay, that's cool. Let's just check out a couple pages. Because there's no examples. People are making all of this information up. Richard John Greenfield in Arizona, criminal conviction, duplicate voting, false registration, ineligible voting. Just to continue on, still 2019. Let's go to page 3. Because I'm sure there's no more that are going to show up because, oh, wow, 2019 continues. Oh, okay, we finally get down to 2018 at least on page 3. Let's check out page 4 just for the fun. I won't go any further than this probably. But as you see, false registration, ineligible voting, duplicate voting, false registrations, still showing 2018 on page 4. There's well over 9 pages. Don't think there's any actual cases of people doing election fraud? Yeah, there's a lot of cases. Does one side not talk about it? Yeah. Does that one side that doesn't talk about it, do they basically say everybody that talks about it's crazy and it's a conspiracy? Yeah. Does the other side that talks about it try to point out facts and evidence? Yeah. And you know what? Guess who people are going to believe? Facts and evidence, I would think. Now, something else that's also working against the left right now, like I said, the doors and walls are closing around these people. They can't win. I really, and that's what Q's said numerous times in some of his posts, is there's no way they can win at this point, right? It's impossible to stop at this point. So all this rioting for all this Black Lives Matter stuff is actually starting to hurt, one, the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very unfortunate considering, I think for the most part, it started on the right approach, right? It had the right thing going on, but then it turned into this whole defund the police. It turned into this burn down cities. It turned into this attacking people, intimidation, and all these other things. So what's happening is the people no longer support Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter right now has almost completely lost support amongst many, and just not just people on the right, but people that are center and center left are starting to freak out and go, man, you are burning down my cities. This is not okay. So again, all of this stuff that they doubled down on once again is working against them. They are really screwed and literally running out of time very quickly. They're starting to get a little scared. Now, speaking of fear and why they're getting scared. Durham. There's a whole lot going on. So the New York Times was trying to sabotage the Durham probe, chasing down conspiracy theories that they tried to say. So from the beginning, John H. Durham's inquiry into the Russian investigation has been politically charged. President Trump promoted it as a certain to uncover a deep state plot against him. Attorney General William P. Barr rebuked the investigators under scrutiny, and he and Mr. Durham publicly second-guessed an independent inspector general and traveled the globe to chase down conspiracy theories. Now, what's really funny is this is, supposedly really credible, the New York Times, right? You should be able to trust them. They're credible. But as it's turned out, they're completely and totally wrong. A whole bunch of information has come out that there seemed to be a lot more going on behind the scenes than, oddly, that $40 million inspector special counsel was able to figure out for us. So strange how that's playing out for us. And what we're starting to see, and a whole bunch of information is being leaked now, John Durham is looking into these prior investigations of questionable millions that flowed into the Clinton Foundation. One of the big things that came out in recent posts was that Huber actually was brought into this as early as April of 2017, way before Barr brought him in. He was supposedly one of the two people, maybe another one, but one of the two people for sure that were looking into these investigations. For whatever reason, Huber and Durham were both looking into it. So it's kind of interesting how that first started. And then Durham, of course, was kind of making progress and kind of getting a lot of things taken care of. So again, a lot has come out around what was going on from the very beginning and who all was involved, who wasn't doing anything, and who now is. So it's going to be interesting to see, again, how these things start to play out. There's been a lot of speculation around the fact that, this one here, that indictments are not expected before the election. I was kind of hinting at that. I kind of thought that was going to be the case. There was some definite teasing that Comey and Brennan are going to be coming and dropping, and it's going to be like the towers falling again on 9/11. But again, if something that huge happened this close to the election, I just don't know if we as a people could handle that. There's already a lot of crazy going on. We've already got a lot on our plates with all the discussion around election fraud, with all the talk about all this violence in the streets and protesters and all of this kind of stuff. The fact that we may not be able to get the votes counted in time. Some people are opening back up. Some people are still heavily locked down. It's going to be interesting because I think New York and California are leading the way in most oppressive situations or most heavily locked down states, which are the two most heavily populous states. I think are trying to maybe try to manipulate their votes. I mean, there's definite proof that voter fraud has occurred. Now, whether it's as widespread as we fear, whether enough people vote in person because they don't want to be a part of this craziness, there's a lot of factors, again, that are coming into play. But like they say, trust the people. And I think for the most part, most people realize that voting in person is a better benefit if they want their vote to count. I mean, literally, if you're voting for any reason at all other than I don't care, right? Like if you want your vote to count, the best way to make it count is to vote in person, period. Because otherwise there's a chance your vote may never get counted. It truly is a chance. You might do something wrong and it doesn't get counted. It might not show up where you want it to. It might get manually removed. Who knows? But there's a question mark. If you vote in person, bleep, 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 and done, you know you voted. You know you did. You get a sticker. It proves it. You did it. So we'll see how this all plays out. Now, talking about sowing division into everything, and this kind of gets into the Supreme Court stuff just a little, and I don't want to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on this guy because he's just a dark, dark soul. But this individual is just, he's quote unquote an anti-racist scholar, which I think is kind of funny, but he's the professor and founding director, the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center is the name of this group that he's in charge of, whatever. And his name's Ibram X. Kendi, I guess. And he says some white colonizers adopted black children. They civilized these savage children in their superior ways, white people, I guess, while using them as props in their lifelong pictures of denial, while cutting the biological parents of these children out of the picture of humanity. He also continues, and whether this is Barrett or not is not the point. It is a belief too many white people have. If they have or adopt a child of color, then they can't be racist. He continues, I am challenging the idea that white parents of kids of color are inherently not racist, and the bots completely change what I am saying to white parents of kids of color are inherently racist. These lives and fake bots are good at their propaganda. Let's not argue with them. Good for him. But anyways, all that being said, he really does not like white people. It's pretty apparent. And certainly any white person that adopts a black person solely doing it because they're trying to cover up their white racism, which is kind of interesting. So I guess from the standpoint of like any white person could never know what a black person thinks or feels, then I would also kind of think that any black person doesn't know what a white person thinks or feels, right? To use the same logic. So to be able to assume there's some sort of white privilege, you don't know what it's like to be white. I certainly don't know what it's like to be black. So I don't think either one of us should try to pretend we know what the other person's going through. Don't think that's a very fair way to go about it at all. So again, the media is, playing this up, of course, but there's just a lot of anger that's coming in here. So building on this Dr. Bram, many authoritarians seize children of color by adoption by white Christians. Pinochet's regime did this with indigenous kids, and Nazis took Aryan-looking Poles from German families. Trump takes migrant kids for adoption by evangelicals. Again, this is what they're trying to push, these same people. I love it. Some white colonizers adopted black children. They civilized. God, I can't take any more of this. But they're obviously fighting the fact that these people are adopting children that don't have homes. Children that don't have homes. They don't care what color they are. Like, what if I don't care what color they are? Like it says down here, and whether this is buried or not is not the point. Too many white people have, if they have or adopt a child of color, then they can't be racist. And then he says he's challenging the idea that white parents of kids of color are inherently not racist. Again, his whole argument. And what's interesting is this guy's worried about white people adopting black children and maybe feeling good about it for any number of reasons. Probably one, helping adopt a child that doesn't have a home. But when you look from the NLM, the NIH, right? This is the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the National Institute of Health that I'm pulling this information from. The abortion rate in the United States is higher than in most other developed countries. Although this fact alone requires attention, looking deeper within these statistics reveals an additional area of concern. Similar to many health outcomes in the United States, there are substantial disparities in abortion rates in the United States, with low-income women and women of color having higher rates than affluent or white women. In 2008, the abortion rate for non-Hispanic white women was 12 abortions per 1,000. That's 1.2 of all children are killed or aborted. So that's with the white women, right? Compared to 29 per 1,000 or 2.9% for Hispanic women, or 40 per 1,000 for non-Hispanic black women. 4% of all black babies born are aborted, per the statistics at the NIH. These people are trying to adopt children that don't have families. Might be black, yeah, but they don't have families. What would you rather them do? Ibram, what would you rather them do? Would you rather those children be aborted? Is that your preference? Because you talk about Black Lives Matter, but you really don't, because 4% of all black children are aborted in the United States. 4%. That's messed up. It's messed up, and that's not cool. So something to keep in mind. And again, finally, just to kind of cover one other thing. Again, conspiracy theory, I'm going to call it. I'm going to label that just for ease. But one thing that a lot of people have talked about is Russia became the boogeyman a while back. And this is supposedly why. Back in 2015, they really wanted to invade Russia. They had staged all the forces they thought they needed to do this, the whole Ukraine thing and all that stuff. I think at the time they believed that the Bush-developed missile shield technology would provide adequate defense against Russian nuclear retaliation. I believe the plan was to get Hillary into power and then stage a nuclear false flag, attacks on the U.S. soil, blame the Russians, and invade. Only now, Trump won, and now Putin has successfully developed his new nuclear ICBMs, his hypersonic drones, and tsunami bombs, all of which defeat the missile shield, restoring MAD, mutual assistance, mutual assured destruction, and taking the cabal's military option off the table. This is why Russia's the boogeyman. Russia might have kind of kicked out the deep state. And since they did that, they have gotten themselves into a little bit of hot water with the deep state. So like Trump, whenever you go against the deep state, you pay the wrath. So Russia's the evil, wicked boogeyman. That's all we hear about. And Trump is the evil, wicked boogeyman with orange hair. That's all we hear about. We don't hear anything about Xi Jinping. We don't hear anything about China and all the crazy stuff that's happening there. We don't hear anything about the North Korean infiltration of our computer systems, because that happens a lot. Like, there's so much that happens. And again, the other side of this is we complain when foreign assets try to mess with our elections. We mess with everybody's elections. We do. There's ample evidence of that. So again, it's not okay. It's not cool, but it's going to happen. Of course. Of course it's going to happen. And it's ridiculous to think it doesn't. And finally, the most important thing. Let's talk about economies really fast. We're going to talk about the three. United States, roughly $20 trillion in GDP. Okay. China, roughly $14.14 trillion GDP. Russia, it's like $1.8 trillion of GDP. 1.8 versus 14 versus 20. Russia is not nearly as big a threat as China, financially anyways. From a military standpoint, I think Russia's a bigger threat, but I don't think they're necessarily pissed at us right now. I think frankly, we're all pissed at the same people. It's just the way it's playing out. And politically right now, it's not okay to say Russia's a friend. And maybe they're not a friend, but certainly it's not politically okay to say anything positive about Russia. Oddly, though, again, they keep ignoring China, the big giant ass bear in the room, or whatever China's animal is. I don't even know. Dragon? I don't know what the hell China is. Anyway, doesn't matter. A lot of crazy stuff is going on. Still got a little bit of a darkness, I think, with posts. Yeah, I don't see anything fresh has happened. So we're still dark on the Q side. And, we'll see what happens as that changes. But a lot's going on. It's happening very quickly. And the walls are closing in around the deep state. Without a doubt, their backup plans are failing left, right, and center. It's almost like we knew what they were going to do, huh? We keep talking about having their playbook. We know what they're doing. And this guy, Durham, he's maybe not made his stuff yet, but he's got a lot of information. And I know people are tired of hearing that, but I really think this had to wait until after the election. Without a doubt, they were going to pin it on Trump that he was trying to sway the election. There is no way that he could have done this, allowed this election or allowed these arrests to happen and not pay some sort of political price for it. Wasn't worth it. My guess is right after the election, some serious stuff's going to go down. We'll see how it all plays out. But again, where we go one, we go all. Let's stay together, folks. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.